being a perfectionist is fucking up your life. While having high standards and striving for excellence can be an admirable trait, it certainly has its extreme downfalls as well. And I know this because it's something I've been going through and trying to change and heal for years now. And it took me so long to even realize what an issue it was in my life. So let me cut the years off for you and tell you why it's harmful and how you can fix it. So one of the biggest things with people who are perfectionists is that they are bound to procrastination. A lot of times perfectionists find it challenging to finish or even start anything because they want to make sure that every little duck is lined up in a row and every little thing is perfect, that they get so stuck on every single detail that they're just like, or they keep tweaking and keep changing it. And so it's never good enough. It's never perfect. So I can't finish it. I can't produce a final product or quality or whatever it is because it's not up to my perfect standards. Another component of that is always wanting additional information or guidance or something just to make it that much more perfect. So they're never satisfied, so they never finish. And because of that, they have decreased productivity because they're so focused. I'm saying they, but like we, because I am in this category. But we lose time and we lose productivity because we spend so much time on the smallest, intricate little details of everything we do that it results in inefficiency. And often these little details are far beyond what is necessary and reasonable. And obviously, perfectionists struggle with unrealistic expectations. And the thing is, it is not only for ourselves, but it's for everyone around us, whether we know them or not. And when those expectations are not met, watch out, because we become frustrated, disappointed, angry, and a sense of failure that typically just isn't necessary and your average person doesn't experience. I mean, think about it, even down to the littlest interactions, right? Like for an example, maybe you're walking into a store and someone walks in ahead of you, doesn't see you, and the door shuts and it like slams in your face. And you're like, wow, how rude, how inconsiderate, how this, what a shitty person. When in reality, they didn't even know you were there. So because your expectations are so high, not only for yourself, but for every single person you come across, it creates this consistent negative feeling within you. It's a constant dissatisfaction that leads to even an overload of stress and anxiety. And because we hold ourselves to just this outrageous perfect standard, along with that comes a fear of judgment from others for not being able to hit that perfect standard that we have set for ourselves. I remember I used to be a competitive gymnast, and I think honestly that's the very early on route where my perfectionism comes from, because you always have to get the perfect 10, right? I remember it was my last, I didn't know it at the time, but it was my last competition before I ended up leaving the sport. And if you don't know much about women's gymnastics, you can medal in each individual event. So floor, bars, beam, and vault. And then there's an overall. So you can medal up to 5 times. In that competition, I medaled 5 times, and you medal with the top 3, so either first, second, or third, right? And so I don't remember what I got for each event or overall or whatever, but I medaled at least first, second, or third in all 5 categories. I stood up on that podium 5 times in a row. And I remember leaving that competition pissed that I didn't do good enough, that I didn't get first place in every single event, okay? And those are the kinds of things that can really just suck the joy out of our lives. Like, are you serious? Are you kidding? But it's funny because I say that and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I was like that. but put me back on the mat, put me back on the beam now, and there's a good chance I would still struggle with that. And so it's a constant thing we need to work on, and I'll get to that in a second, but I want to finish going over the ways that your perfectionism is literally effing up your life. Negative self-esteem. I think from the outside perspective, people look at perfectionists as these, you know, well-rounded, go-getters, have it all together type of people. But when we look at ourselves, we see anything but that. If we aren't the CEO of the company that we're working at, if we don't have the perfect muscle definition and fat percentage in our bodies, if we're not eating perfectly, if we don't have our exact nightly routine down, if we don't close a deal when we're in the sales field, if we make our kid cry, like there are so many things that we can fault ourselves for, and it makes us feel so shitty about ourselves because it's not perfect, which is unattainable. You know, a lot of times perfectionists will tie their self-worth to external accomplishments and validation. It's a hard thing to kind of look at and see that you do, but I know, and it's a little vulnerable to me, you know, to say this, but like I can admit that I did that, such as with the gymnastics example. You know, I remember the first time I got straight A's on a report card in middle school, and I was so pumped and overjoyed and proud of myself. And then the next quarter, I got straight A's except one B. I think it was a B minus. You would have thought the world ended because I didn't have those perfect straight A's. And it's detrimental to our self-worth when we are tying it into all of these things that we are doing and being, and we're never going to feel enough because you can't do everything, okay? You can't be the best at every single thing out there. And when we don't reach these self-imposed over-the-top standards that we set for ourselves, we can experience a significant, deep blow to our self-esteem that can just stick with us for good. If we don't learn how to change that, it leads to just a cycle of self-criticism and self-doubt and just never feeling good enough. And the last way that being a perfectionist is effing up your life is it is creating strained relationships. And I don't mean just your romantic partner if you have one, but definitely your family, your friends, your acquaintances, your coworkers. It can strain all of those things. Because we expect so highly of ourselves, we expect so highly of others. So when they fall short of that unrealistic expectation, we are just, how the hell could you not do that? How did you not reach that criteria that I've set for you? You know, and it can lead with this extreme disappointment that we feel towards that person. And in turn, they're gonna feel that even if you don't necessarily say it, which a lot of us do, but even if you don't say it, don't you think that they can energetically feel that when you are disappointed in them? And look, I'm not saying that you should never have boundaries and hold people accountable in your life, okay? I'm huge on that. But you need to be able to make the distinction of when it is reasonable and when you are just being over the top. And I just want to note here before we get into specific ways that you can kind of start to break this perfectionistic pattern, because it is a journey, it is an ongoing thing. I do want to point out that there are some positive attributes to being a perfectionist. And that is that, you know, you usually got your shit together, right? You usually do excel in multiple categories in your life, but there is a balance there in loving and being compassionate to yourself and others, and being over the top and letting it affect you and everything around you and just downright making you unhappy. You know, there's a way to be happy and also strive to be great. So I want to give you guys some practices that I have done to kind of break these unrealistic patterns and kind of force myself to not be as uptight and anxious and stressed all the time. And you're probably a perfectionist if you're watching this video. So some of the things and some of these practices I'm going to give you might stress you out when you hear it, but just understand that what we're gonna do here is overcorrect so that you can find a balance in the middle. So the things that I'm going to tell you to try to implement and experiment with isn't necessarily something you need to do forever, but we're going from one extreme to, it's not even another extreme, but it feels extreme. They feel extreme for us being perfectionists, and just finding a balance in the middle. Once you get used to allowing yourself to not feel anxious in certain situations because of the perfectionistic tendencies. So what I do to practice this is to force imperfection until it doesn't bother me so much. You know, so it's kind of like a repetitive thing. If you do it over and over and over again, you start to accept it, right? And that's anything in life. So when you start to force yourself to not do things perfectly, it's going to be really uncomfortable, especially at first. But as you continue to do it, it's going to feel a little more comfortable, a little more familiar, until you get more comfortable with it. And you're never, I'm not gonna say never, you might never be fully comfortable with these practices, but it's going to lessen the stress and anxiety that comes along with some of these scenarios. And it's going to give you a little more wiggle room, okay? And overall, just allow you to be more at peace and happy and stop being so stressed, okay? So when I did this, I wanted to attack the thing that stresses me out the most, that I hold myself to such a high standard at, and everyone around me. So I kind of took, you don't have to do this for yourself, but I took the worst one for me and I made it first. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna tackle this big monster of a thing head on, and I'm gonna force myself to deal with this. And so that is being on time, okay? I am so anal retentive about time, schedules, list. If you say you're meeting me at 6 o'clock, you better be there at 6 o'clock. I don't care if you're there at 5:55, you know, but if you were there at 6:05, if you were there at 6:10, I get so angry and worked up and I feel so disrespected. And I've recognized how over the top that is, you know, and so it's something that I've been working on. So if this is something that you struggle with, here's what you're gonna do. You're going to purposely be late a lot. Now, let's put things aside that you actually have to be on time for, like maybe meetings for work or a wedding or a flight, you know, or something like that. But I'm talking about, you know, if you're meeting your friends for a drink, or, you know, you're going home to see your family, or, you know, you said that you wanted to go to the gym at, you know, 6 o'clock this morning. Okay, all of these things that, you know, I want you to do this with something that doesn't have that extra layer of anxiety attached to it. And I want you to do this in steps. So force yourself to be 3 minutes late. And once you get comfortable with that, force yourself to be 5 minutes late. And once you get comfortable with that, force yourself to be 10 minutes late. That's a biggie. That's a friggin' doozy, being 10 minutes late for people like us. And look, before you come at me for what I would come at someone else for, which is being disrespectful of other people's time, maybe you can tell them ahead of time what you're doing, you know, and share that you're trying to heal this part of you. And just let your people know, right? I think that's a go. Let your people know what you're doing, and so that they can expect you. Well, no, because I don't know, that kind of negates the whole purpose of it. Don't do that. Just make sure it's with people that are understanding, and make sure that it's not something you have to be super on time for. But I want you to get comfortable with being late, okay? And this will help you redirect your priorities and understand that it's just gonna give you so much more like relaxation. You know, like I know if I'm going to hang out with someone, I tell them, oh yeah, you know, I'll be over at 2 o'clock. If I'm not, I first of all, I'll be there at 1:45, even if I'm just sitting in my car for 15 minutes. Like, there is no chance I am going to be late. But when you learn to take that extra layer of stress off that we implement on ourselves, you'll realize that no one else really gives a shit. You know, there's been times where I've called people, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna be, you know, 5 minutes late. And they're like, okay, why'd you call? Like, to let you know I'm gonna be 5 minutes late. Cool, Sarah, like, we're sitting down, we'll see you in a few minutes. Like, it's not a big deal to most people. And the only reason it's a big deal to us is because we have made it a big deal. So I want you to practice being late. And let me know how it goes, because it was a tough one for me. All right, I'm gonna give you 3 more. And these are all things I've done. The next thing is, if you're going through some type of program, right? Maybe it's like an online challenge or something you decided that you were gonna do, like, oh, 28 days of this type of workout, or I'm gonna read 10 pages of this book every single day, or I read a book a week, you know, and I have to read this book, you know, every 7 days I read a book. Whatever little schedule you've set for yourself, whatever this time-oriented goal might be, we're gonna break the rules. You know, an example of this is a book, like a workbook I'm going through. It's called The Magic. It's based by The Secret. If you're not sure what that is, it's kind of like it's like a gratitude book, but it's like a 28-day program, and you're supposed to do one of these things every single day, 28 days. I purposely took longer than 28 days. It took me like 40 or 42 or something, because I was trying to de-stress myself and the fact that, like, it doesn't have to be done in 28 days. It's okay if it's not. Ooh, you know what I do, guys? I make fun of myself. Like, ooh, Sarah, the world's gonna end if you don't finish this workbook in 28 days. Like, it's, learn to laugh at yourself, right? That's really gonna be helpful on this, you know, journey to healing your perfectionistic tendencies. You know, you have to talk yourself into being okay with the fact that you're not going to do exactly what you said on this regimented schedule every single day. You know, maybe you like to read every day and then one day you miss it and you're like beating yourself up about it, like, oh, I didn't read my 10 pages today. Who the F cares, right? And so on purpose, skip a day. And when you're feeling crazy, skip 2 days, all right? So these are the kind of things we just want to push our own boundaries that really, like, aren't a big deal to most people. Like, if you're someone that's not a perfectionist and you're watching this, you're probably like, what the hell? Like, people live like this? Yes, we do. We do. It's rough. And my whole point is, like, we don't have to live like this, okay? Oh, all right, number 3. I want you to jump on a scale, if you can, and whatever weight number comes out, I want you to force yourself to be okay with it. I want you to be satisfied with whatever number you see on the scale. I want you to be satisfied with whatever you're doing to lose weight if you're on a weight loss journey. Obviously, if you're not, then, you know, this doesn't pertain to you. But if you're, like, into fitness, a lot of perfectionists have an issue with this because we want to sculpt our body perfectly. We want to do our hair perfectly. We want to do our makeup perfectly. So you need to get comfortable with it not being exactly where you want to be and being compassionate with yourself that you're on your way. So I know this one's a hard one. I still do this a lot. I'm not like a big scale person, but like I said in the beginning, you don't have to do these things forever, right? But do these. Get on the scale if you have one and work on that. And with that is gonna come with self-love. But just know that, like, these things are gonna be stressful the first time you do it, probably even the 5th or 10th time you do it. but I am a testimony live here in front of you. Me, it can and it will get better if you stick to this practice, but don't be crazy about it either. You know, it's like a freaking cycle, right? Shit. All right, and here's something that all of us can do, okay? If you're out and about with friends, with family, on vacation, doing something, and on a whim, the plan changes. Allow yourself to go with it, to let it happen, to go with the flow and not feel all high energy and stress and structured. Oh, you missed a flight? Get on the next one. Oh, you guys were supposed to be at this time, be here at this time? You missed your dinner reservation? Go somewhere else. You know, an example of this lately for me is that I have been dating, seeing someone, and we had this whole plan. I think it was our second date. I don't know, I don't remember. It was a few months ago. But we had a plan that we were gonna meet at his place and he was going to drive us to go see a movie and go to dinner. So I get there, you know, anal retentive Sarah, and I'm like, okay, we have to see the movie times, we have to do this, we have to figure out where we're going to dinner, blah, blah, blah. We get there, I get there, and we ended up talking for like over 2 hours, and by the time we realized that we hadn't gone to see a movie or gone to dinner yet, we were both hungry, you know, we basically had to choose one. Like, ah, shit, you know, we missed one of these. You know, what are we gonna do? Old Sarah, if I hadn't been implementing these practices and working on healing this perfectionistic side of me, the whole time I would have been sitting there and we were like talking and having a good time and hanging out, laughing, you know, just like really in the moment, I wouldn't have been. I would have been stressed about figuring out what the plan was. And so allowing the flow it makes everything better. It makes your relationships better. It allows you to be in the moment more and enjoy those moments more than just being focused on the schedule and being focused on the plan. Like, oh, well, we have to leave here at this time to get here on this time. I'm telling you guys, and like I said, it's something that I still work on most days, not every day, most days. My life is so much more fulfilling and genuine and easy after implementing these practices and really understanding that my perfectionistic tendencies were getting in the way of me being happy and enjoying my life. And so I really hope you guys found some value in this video. I felt so called to share it with you guys because I know how awful it can be to be feeling high, tense, be feeling stressed and overwhelmed and anxious all the time, and you know, it just doesn't allow you to enjoy anything as much as you should be. So let me know in the comments below what you're gonna try, and don't forget to like and subscribe so we can hang out again next week. I love you guys so much, and don't forget, be limitlessly yourself.